Thank you. Thank you, Rico. Excuse me. I want to thank my sponsor, Rico Cruz, for introducing me. And my name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic. And I also want to thank Ali for asking me out and Teresa for always making me feel welcome here, and the people that are serving in here. And let me give you the whole statement that I'm talking about, that I want to talk about tonight. It's out of the 12 and 12, and it's on page 105. And you will also report that out of every season of grief and suffering, when the hand of God seemed heavy and unjust, new lessons for living were learned, new resources of courage were uncovered, and finally, inescapably, the conviction came that God does move in mysterious ways, his wonders to perform. And it took me a long time to get to that, right? To tell you about all that, I have to go back to the beginning. And I'll just start back when I walked into the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, or more specifically, I walked in the Salvation Army Harbor Light Center on February 7th of 1987, more dead than alive, following in the footsteps of my two brothers, Ralph and Ronald. And a lot of the stuff I did, a lot of the stuff I do is following in the footsteps of my brothers, Ralph and Ronald, and actually in a lot of you guys' footsteps. That's pretty much how I've learned and how I've grown. When I walked in the Salvation Army, yeah, I was in bad shape, but really I wasn't in that bad a shape. I still had work history. I hadn't lost so much. I was just on a bad streak, right? I really had come in here on a high bottom, even though I didn't know it, right? And so when I came to the fellowship and I started doing exactly what you guys started asking me to do, my life started getting better immediately. When I came in here, I had some goals already, right? When I walked in here, one of the first things after I got my feet under me and decided I would stay, because at first I was going to walk out of here. I had no intention of staying here. I went into the Harbor Light because I owed a bunch of people money. I had nowhere else to go. There was nowhere to sleep. I'd asked Ralph to take the car back to the girl who I had borrowed it from. By borrowing, that meant I had taken it from the Valley to LA to go buy some stuff, and I didn't never take the car back. So, I didn't have any gas money, and I had the car for 2 weeks and owed a bunch of guys money, right? So when they took the car, when I asked Ralph to take the car back, the only condition, he said there was a condition to it. I had to go into the Harbor Light Center, right? So I really got extorted in the recovery, right? Which is how a lot of us do it, right? We don't go in here. Well, in my experience, most people don't go in here because I look up and I say, man, I think I really, really need some help. Let me just go in here and just go into rehab and turn my life around. No, generally somebody's saying, get your smelling butt up out of this house. You need to be working or doing something, or you need to go to recovery, or the judge says you're going to either go to jail or you're going to go to recovery, or the policeman says, here, you driving drunk and you're going to jail. You know, there's some kind of motivating factor other than just me saying I want to better myself, right? And I went up into that rehab with an open mind because I had no idea what was going on. And then I learned about what recovery was at 9604 South Figueroa and Alano Club in downtown in South Central Los Angeles. And I started following in people's footsteps. And they all were talking about this God thing, which scared the heck out of me because I didn't come here for God. I came here because I wanted to learn how to hold on to a job, hold on to my paycheck, not spend my entire paycheck, be able to pay my bills, be able to hold on to a car, be able to hold on to a license, insurance, and registration, and to a bank account, hold on to a girlfriend or two, in my apartment. And you guys gave me a whole lot more. And I started to see, I was watching you guys and I listened to your stories and I started to want what you guys had. And I started to do what you guys said do. And then we really hit a break when they started Never Too Early Big Book Workshop when I had about 10 months sober. So now, because I'd hit a couple of goals already and I was already on my way. My first goal, I needed to find out I could have sex sober, right? That was a huge goal. I had never done it, and I needed to do that. And I found out I could do that. Then I found out that I could get a job, and I found out I could hold on to a job. Then we started Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, and we went out to a Joe and Charlie big workshop deal in Long Beach, and we started working the steps as outlined in the big book, and my life took off. Right, my life took off and got really good, really fast, and I got a girlfriend there, in the program, and she had a son. And I was really happy to have this. And we moved in together immediately in a couple of weeks. And so now I got this ready-made family, and we're doing movie nights together, like my little group with Ralph and his girlfriend, and Ronnie and his, and Rod. Then Rod came to the fellowship right after we started the workshop. About a month after that, Rod came. And so now we got most of my family back here in recovery. And life was really, really good. My mom was so thrilled. The woman we had almost killed a couple of years before then. So now I'm working a really good job. I got this girlfriend with this son, and then I got recruited by the richest man in LA. Now I barely have close to 2 years sobriety. And this guy, Eli Bro, recruited me to bring his company from Atlanta to LA. But he said I needed to live in Atlanta. So I moved to Atlanta. I got a family in West Hollywood. I moved them to West Hollywood out of South Central LA. And they're paying for everything. I'm making six figures. I'm huge. And I'm up there in management because I came in here on a high bottom. And I got a lot of things really fast. And I'm telling you guys all this to say, you're not hearing me talk about God, right? You're not hearing me talk about any kind of spiritual thing. You're not hearing me talk about helping people. Now, it started out like that. I started out going on panels to prisons and taking a panel down the Harbor Light, and I had taken panels down to other places on Skid Row, and I'd had a sponsor, and we were traveling around. My first sponsor, this guy named Malcolm, and I had sponsees, and I'm doing things, but now I'm living life. And what else are we supposed to do when we recover? I thought that the idea of recovery was that we reintegrate ourselves into society, right? And that the goal is to become a productive member of society. And I remember one of the biggest things I was so proud of is when I was sober and my mom started having me pick her up on her way to work and dropping her off at her carpool on my way to work and stuff like that when I was in LA before I moved out to Atlanta. So, I mean, life had just gotten really, really good. So now I'm busy with my family here in LA, and I got work that I'm doing in Atlanta. I got 3 shifts running 24 hours a day. I didn't like the meetings in Atlanta, and then I didn't have time for the meetings in Atlanta. Then I'm not going to Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, so I'm not working the steps anymore. So I'm not talking to my sponsor or sponsees, but I'm working my program at work, guys. I'm helping a lot of people work. This is all stuff I'm telling myself, right? Because a lot of people, I had over 250 employees, and there were a lot of people that had problems, and I'm counseling them and sending them to AA and doing stuff like that. And I'm thinking I'm using the principles of the program at my job, and they're helping me because it's all about unselfishness and helping others. And people in the business world are shocked by that. And they were like, and I was really, really successful because of that. My management style, and people love me. So I'm doing great on the job, and this is going forward for years. And then I'm great at home because I'm not at home. I'm in Atlanta and I'm flying back and forth. I probably wouldn't have been so great at home, but I was flying back and forth, and then got my girlfriend pregnant, right? Which I was shocked at. I didn't think I could get anybody pregnant. I always say it in my share. I barebacked it all my life. I didn't like using protection. I didn't think I could get anybody pregnant. And I got my girlfriend pregnant, and then I had a daughter of my own. And I was so happy. And so now, but I'm still flying back and forth. And I'm, and life is still so busy. And then by the time I got back to LA permanently, and I'm set permanently, my daughter is getting up there a little bit in age. She's now 4 years old, and she gets Carolyn, my ex-wife, my wife at the time, thought she saw her have a little sleep and took her to Children's Hospital. And when she took her to Children's Hospital, they couldn't induce it. They did everything they could, but they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And so finally, rather than just say, okay, you guys go back home, a first-year neurologist guy, he prescribed a seizure medication that wasn't supposed to be given to a child under the ages of 6 or 7, I forget, but it wasn't, he was too young for that. And with a seizure medication, you can't just stop the medication because it will cause a seizure. So you have to switch it to another one. And we kept seeing all the side effects. We kept going back to the hospital. And my baby's suffering. She's being eaten up from the inside. It was eating her kidneys away. And she couldn't eat. And she's in total agony for 4 months, back and forth, and hugging me saying, tummy hurts, Daddy. And I couldn't stop it. I couldn't do anything. And finally I said, let's go to Cedars-Sinai. That's the best hospital. I said, hell with Children's Hospital. Took her away, took her to Cedars-Sinai, the best hospital. And they said, we have to intubate. She's in too much pain. And 3.5 weeks, she was in an induced coma. And so all of AA gathered around. All of AA. We were reading this little book. I forget what it was. The Hobbit, I think it was. And we would have it, and whoever would sit next to Angie, next to it, because we were thinking she could hear maybe in there. And we didn't want her to sit there scared, thinking she was by herself. Whoever came next out of AA or the church, whoever, would just pick up the book and read wherever somebody else had left off. And we're just that book for those 3.5 weeks. And we weren't alone for a second. And I'm praying, right? But my prayer is, God, I start praying again. So I stopped praying. I wasn't doing anything AA related. I always talk about don't let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. And with that, I'm really serious about that. Because I really thought, I didn't think there was anything wrong with just being a productive citizen. That's why we stopped doing this thing, is to be productive citizens again. And it wasn't that I wanted to stop. I couldn't. I was too busy. Anyway, I'm praying again. And I remember I called my mom and I asked her, I remember when I first got it, when they first intubated her, I said, Mom, please come up here and pray for my baby, right? And I was praying like, God, please take my life, save my baby. And Mom came up there and she did a prayer. She said, God, I remember this. She said, God, please give this family the strength to walk through whatever your decision is, whatever the outcome is here. Give this family the strength to make it through it. Give this family the strength to walk through whatever your will is, whatever your decision is. And I remember I was pissed. I got real pissed at my mom, right? And in my mind, I was shocked. I'm cussing her out, right? And because I'm thinking, why is she not asking? Who wouldn't want a little girl to live? Who wouldn't want her to not be in agony? Who wouldn't want her to be? What part of this? How is that selfish, right? I couldn't see it. And I'm cursing my mom in my mind, right? And the doctors came out. They got they had actually talked to the manufacturer of the drug, Tegretol, and the manufacturer said, "Oh, that's Tegretol poison. You should have been called." And they knew it was fatal, right? Or actually, they could have saved my daughter. We could have given a kidney, me, my wife, or my son, but the hospital didn't tell us that. That's why I always say she was murdered. They made a money decision. They didn't want her. If she lived, they would have been on the hook for the rest of her life for payment for her medical treatment, plus all the negligence, right? And we they didn't want it. And with her dying, she was only worth $250,000. That was only liability, $250,000 on the books in California. And so they made that decision, and they opened her up and they killed her. And I shut down. right? Because I didn't have my feet trained. I'd been away from AA too long. I didn't do the stuff that we had been taught. And I was totally, I just loved that little. Maybe I made her my God. And that's where this phrase comes in. Out of every season of grief or suffering, when the hand of God seemed heavy or even unjust, new lessons for living were learned. And I didn't learn them right there on the spot, right? But it's never too late to learn. That's what I found out because I was down, right? I shut down. I totally shut down and couldn't hear you guys. We know what to do, right? But I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And all of you tried to do to me and I couldn't hear you. And 11 months later, I went and I drank. And for 16 years, I was down like that. And everybody gave up on me. Everybody, including me. And everybody should have given up. I've been trying to get back several times and a lot of times. And by that time, there was absolutely no one. My mom was the last to give up on me. She let me rent a room in her house. And I couldn't get back. And so much happened over those 16 years. I went from being a high bottom guy to eventually, at the end, I became a low bottom guy. I got glaucoma in 2009. God had to slow me down, right? Because I could have kept going because I'm a guy who knows how to keep working, right? And I can keep paying my way and keep lying and keep working. And I was doing that. And in 2009, he gave me glaucoma. And I have 0% vision in my right eye and 30% in my left. And so now I can no longer drive and now I can no longer work. And I learned what it's like to be a low bottom. Now I'm a low bottom drunk. The low bottom, I forget, this is not AA, right, Ali? I can say what I want. Okay.
It's AA, but you speak what you want.
Oh, it's AA. Well, then I'll keep it AA. Sorry about that. There were other things that I added in. So now I'm on public assistance. I'm selling plasma twice a week. And so now I'm a guy, a low bottom guy. And I walk in the street like a zombie, like doing the zombie walk. I'm doing that walk of the street. And I'm doing those other things that I'd done that had brought me into the first place. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. And I learned I was an alcoholic when I went in that house. And so doing that. Now when I'm a low bottom guy and I'm doing that and life got away from me. Life got away from me. And I couldn't even lie to myself anymore. I couldn't. It got to the point finally, because I'd always said, okay, I'll go to rehab and I'll do this and I'll make it back. And I would make it back and make it back and make it back. But I couldn't get any traction, right? When I was trying to do it without God. Because I hate God and I'm cursing God. And I'm saying F God because I'm so upset with God. Because it seems so unjust. That hand seems so unjust. What kind of God would let a little girl be tortured like that? He did nothing to nobody. and I couldn't see it. And then you guys would be telling me stuff like, oh, God knows, God has his reasons, and oh, she's in a better place, and oh, you're young, you can still have another child, and oh, God knows, there are no mistakes in God's world, which and all that, and I'm thinking that's got to be a mistake, and finally, I was able to get back, right? Because one of those reasons, like I said, not because I said, oh, I'm tired of this. I remember sitting behind my mom's garage with that bottle of Cisco and a broken piece of paraphernalia in my hand, right? and I gave up. I didn't know that was my surrender. What it was, I said to myself, I can't make it back. That was the first time I said, I cannot make it back to you guys. I said, I've done every single thing that I can to make it back. I've tried every way that I know how. I forgot about God because I wasn't going to try him. That wasn't even an option. You know how in the book it says God is everything or God is nothing. I actively said God is nothing. God is nothing. I made that active choice because I just couldn't understand that option he made. Right? And that girl stole my mother's car out of her driveway on June 24th, 2017. And I'd already had a couple of days sobriety, right? Not due to any virtue of myself, but because I was broke, and I was just broke. So I'd had a couple of days sobriety already. But June 24th, 2017, my mother's car got stolen out of her driveway by my so-called girlfriend. And my baby brother, of all the humiliating things, my baby brother Rod pushed the door open, right? And he said, "Where's Mom's car?" And I looked and said, "What are you talking about? You got to leave my mother's house right now." And I sat up and looked behind him, and my mother was looking terrified. And I felt like my soul it felt like a piece of my soul just left. And I remember I had a tough choice to make, and I called Rico that day. Later on that day, I had to get a couple of bucks and make a call to Rico. And Rico said, he told me he'd get me an act into the rehab. And 2 days later, I was walking the grounds of that rehab. And that's when God showed up again with the face of Rico Cruz. He always shows up with one of you guys' faces, right? And he showed up with the face of Rico Cruz. And when God showed up strong. And he walked up on me and told me to pick my head up, that I didn't have a right to walk with my head down anymore, that I was a child of God. And that he told me that God had important things for me to do. And that's when I finally asked the man for help. And I asked Rico for help. And thank God that God just gave my permission to work in my life. And that's when something flipped. And that's when God came back to my life without my permission, right? And where I'm going with this is this. One of the things that I realized through all of that time, when I worked all of those steps and through all of that stuff before my daughter died, I skipped steps. If I had been doing steps 10 and 11 and 12, I would never let go of this program. I skipped. Those are important steps not to skip. I remember thinking that step 11 is nothing. When I saw through prayer and meditation and improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him, I looked at sought to meditate. That's all I saw was meditate. And all I ever heard people talk about with step 11 is, oh, I sit and I read these books and I meditate. Oh, I sit and do this and I meditate. Oh, I meditate for an hour. Oh, I meditate. And it seemed to me, I always thought, why am I floating everywhere instead of just doing the program, right? And I stopped and I kept doing step 12. That was the only step I did. I didn't do step 11. I didn't do the daily. There was no prayer or meditation. No prayer and no meditation. So this time around, when I got a second chance, and I remember walking back in the Never Too Early, and I was cursing, right? I was still cussing God out. I got out of that rehab. I was on the third step, walked back in the Never Too Early. We were right there at the third step. In the first or second week back there, we were on our knees doing that third step prayer, and I was still cussing God. I didn't have no thoughts of God, right? But then I knew that you guys believed. I knew that. I knew that, and I knew it worked in your life. The thing I've always had that other people haven't had is to be able to look at Ronnie and Ralph, right? And look at the fact that in Ronnie and Ralph, they did the exact same things that I did. And I knew that if it was working for them, it could work for me. and I knew it was working in their life. And then we got to that fourth step, and then Ralph always talked about that. Do you want to be right or do you want to be free? And I remember that day I put God on that fourth step. And I remember that day in the workshop when Ronnie was there. Ralph was gone somewhere. He was out traveling. And Ronnie called, he said, who wants to read it all the way across? And I read it all the way across. And that's when something different happened in my life. That's when I finally started to open my heart back up to God. When I put God on that fourth step and took God through it and realized that God didn't give my little girl the medication that made her sick. That was a doctor's at Children's Hospital. And God didn't make the decision to murder my daughter. That was a doctor's at Cedar Sinai. And then I had to realize that God, I'm praying for God to save my life and take my life and save my daughter, but God didn't work for me, right? I worked for God. And things started to change a little bit. And then I said, I was so desperate this time. I said, I'm not skipping any steps. I'm not skipping any of these steps. And I even did a real 6 and 7. And I actually did it exactly as outlined in the book. And Rico is such a good sponsor. Rico always told me one of the things, all the time I tried to get back in these 16 years, I was always so ashamed and so humiliated at the fact that I didn't have the time that I had before. And that my brother, I wasn't up here with my brothers like I was. And Rico said, Reggie, you are your own person. You are not Ronnie, you're not Ralph, you're not Rod. He said, and as a matter of fact, you're not Bill Wilson and you're not, he said, but you are no less than any person walking in this program. He said that I don't care how many days or how little time you have in this program or how much time you have in this program. We are all equal, and the only person above any of us is God. He said, that's the only person I want you to put on a pedestal. That's the only person that I want you to believe that you are anything less than is God. Know that you're not equal to God, that there is a God, that God is more powerful than you, but no man is more powerful than you. And he said, I want you to walk in your own brand of dignity. And I took that to heart ever since I've been back. Every single second since I've been back, I've turned my head. Something God did in my life while I was still in that rehab, I have nothing to do with that. Thank God he doesn't need my permission to work in my life. Something changed while I was in there, and I stopped worrying about me, and I start worrying about you guys. And I've never for 1 second looked down, or I've never, ever felt any kind of inferiority again, which is what held me back for so many years. And new friends, if you were trying to walk back into this program, if you coming back after one of those relapses or years out in a relapse, you are a child of God. And no man, you're the equal of every single man and woman in the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, every single one. And then, so after I go through 6 and 7, I started realizing that things had started changing in me. And then I go to 8 and 9, right? And then I realized as we start writing out those amends cards, it was different than doing. Everything was different this time. Everything was different. And I started to worry more about you guys than I worried about me. And I wasn't worried about, all I worried about on those amends was doing the amends for them. And then that's where I really saw God. That's where it totally got back with God. And I got God back in my life. And then I started to realize that that's what this whole thing is about. That's what this thing is not about me getting cars. It's not about me getting girls. It's not about me getting jobs. It's not about me saving people. It's not about me doing it's sort of like when I get to step 11, and sometimes I really forget what the whole ideal of step 11 is. It's all through prayer and meditation to improve my conscious contact with God as I understand him. Period. That's it. That's all. That's it. That's all. When I get into meditation, I ask for one thing. A guy like me, I got to keep it simple, and I'm not knocking anybody that reads a dozen books, listen to a dozen tapes, have all kind of sounds or anything else. For a guy like me, who's been through so much, I keep it so simple. In a vision for you, it says, ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who's still sick. I ask him in my morning meditation what I can do each day for the man who's still sick. Then Polly Pistol outlined how to do it in here. I remember in this group one day, and I sit here and I've been doing it the exact same way every time. Chris Finley asked me about that today. She said, well, I know your meditation has probably changed because you used to do it like Polly said, do it like, and I do it the exact same way. Every morning when I get up, I sit there and I meditate for as long as I can do it, which to me is probably about 10 minutes. Then I'm writing out my list for the day. I'm writing who I want to talk to, who I want to see, what I want to get done that day, whatever is running across my mind. My friend Teresa told me, don't let the thoughts just run by you that run through your head. Meditation, catch those thoughts and remember them. And I remember that. See, I remember everything you guys tell me. I listen to every single person, no matter how much time they got or how little time they got. And I catch those thoughts and I write them down in my meditation. Then I write a gratitude list. Then at night, I go to it and I think about it. I don't go to the list. I lay in the bed. I sit there right. As soon as I get in the bed, I said, how did I do? How did I do? And I go through that. And that's how I do step 11. But step 11, mainly more than anything else. And I want to go back to what the reading is. Out of every season of suffering, when the hand of God seemed heavy or even unjust, new lessons for living are learned. New resources for courage are uncovered. And finally, inescapably, the conviction came that God does move in mysterious ways and wonders perform. And one of the things I want to talk about is this. What I'm really convinced, more than anything else, that God allows us self-will. I'm not one of those guys to say, oh, everything happens is part of God's plan. I think that God lets us operate here. God lets us have free will, and that sometimes man does things to man that shouldn't be done to man, and that God makes lemonade out of lemons. How does he do that? Well, for example, this pandemic hit us. Now we have millions, 500,000, maybe millions of people dying all over the world. Out of this, Alcoholics Anonymous has risen up, and we spread out worldwide and soon. And now, in addition to all our live meetings, we have become so much closer worldwide. And I see people on this meeting that I never would have known, you know, and people who had stopped being able to go to meetings, older people. I remember my friend Strange had stopped going to meetings. And I felt so good that at the end of his life, Strange was able to get back with Alcoholics Anonymous, and people were able to show him how much he was loved. He had stopped being able to go to meetings because he had an oxygen tank and all this, and he just couldn't make it. And he was revived. And how many people were revived, have been revived by this? So God takes lemon, and makes lemonade out of it. How does that work in my life? Well, because of me doing this 11th step, because of me keeping this God in my life. See, big stuff doesn't bother me. I'm ready for all the big stuff. I can handle all that. But see, me, I'm an asshole. I'm a guy who talks crazy. I'm a guy who's sarcastic. I'm a guy who's judgmental. And even though I'm a super generous guy, I'm a guy who gets petty about some little things. I'll tell you something about how just having that God, that understanding in my life. I'm going to give you something silly just to let you know how petty I am. 5 minutes? Good. I could tell one petty quick story about me. Chili beans. My mom made some chili beans yesterday. My mom is 93 years old, and I love her more than anything in this world. And the biggest part of my life was that I've been able to rebuild that relationship with my mother when I thought it was totally over. Everybody thought it was totally over. Me and my mom, in my birthday card this year, last year, my mom wrote in there, "You are the center of my universe." And I keep telling all my brothers that. I want to make sure they all hear it. And I'm so thrilled by that. And my mom made chili beans. Why is that a big deal to me? Because my mom is 93 years old. And the only home cooked food I get is when I get to go down to her house and she has some stuff that I can bring home. And how much longer do I get to eat my mom's cooking, right? And I'm so thrilled to eat any of the stuff. And my mom make the best chili beans in the world. She knows I love them. Chili beans and cornbread. And so I normally go down there and I get a big pot of that stuff to bring home with me and eat a couple of days. But I got my next door neighbor, right? My friend named Bobby, who got me this apartment and everything. He's in Never Too Early Big Book Workshop. He takes my mom to go get her nails done and take her anywhere she wants to go, in addition to taking me everywhere. He goes and gets my little baby brother, Rick, and he goes and takes him to fix his bike, or goes and does, in other words, he does stuff for my family. Yesterday, my friend Bobby went down to my mom's house with me. We went and saw Ralph and my mom talked to him and didn't even tell me about it. I knew she was making chili beans and stuff. And late last night, Bobby came home and he had a bag and he had a bowl of chili beans for me and he had a bowl for himself. And he said, your mom wanted to surprise you and send this home and have some for me and some for him. And you know how petty I am. I was so upset that he got my part of my chili beans. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to eat all those chili beans. And I was so upset, and I planned on going down and yelling at my mom. I was going to say, are you kidding me? I don't know how many more times I get to eat your feet, you know. And then I thought to myself, I prayed and I meditated this morning, and I thought to myself, before I go talk to my mom about this, my mom is so happy that she's able to do something for this man that's doing something for me, for her sons, and for her, and for bringing him into the family and being unselfish. And once again, she's teaching me about being unselfish. And that man is so happy to be part of my family. And that may not seem like much to you guys, but you don't know how I feel about my mother's cooking, right? And anyway, this was kind of crazy. This was kind of strange. But Ali, what I was really trying to say is I was so pissed off at God. I was so angry at God. And now I'm so thrilled with the way that God has brought me back to you. I'm so happy and I'm so grateful that God has done so much in my life, that I've had 2 great sobrieties in one lifetime. I never would have thought that I could see it this way. The way I had seen it so long was that God had taken my little girl from me at such a young age. And why would he take her away from me like that? And the way that I've come to look at it is this: that God, not that God took my daughter away from me, but that God gave me a miracle baby and that he allowed me to be a father. And that's the way I prefer to look at it. And that's the miracle that comes out of it. Anyway, thank you so much for inviting me out. Hopefully I made some kind of sense. Thank you very much. My name's Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic.
Rico Cruz, come on up, brother.
Good evening, family and friends. Welcome to Newcomers. My name is Rico Cruz. I'm grateful to cover the alcoholic. I'm not going to ask Reggie why he didn't call his sponsor yesterday morning when he was pissed off at his mom. We'll do that another time. But what I want to say, Reggie, is I love you, man, and you have no idea what kind of transformation has taken place in your life, man. And it's like Ralph used to always tell me, you know what makes a good sponsor, Rico? I said, no, what? He said, a sponsor on fire. And that's what you've been since the time I met you, man. I love you, man. I'm glad you understand what took place and you didn't have nothing to do with it. Only thing you did was keep coming back. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Rico. Good to see you, brother. And Reggie, please, if you are moved to share on a share, please go ahead. Next is Mr. Ronald White. Come on up, please.
Hello, everybody. My name is Ronald White. I'm an alcoholic. In my car, having to hear my little brother, such a little asshole. How dare you think that about my mama? I wish you would.
You got muted.
You got muted because you was yelling at him. See, God muted you.
Somebody trying to call me, so I had to get him off. I just wanted you to know, Reggie, how proud I am of you. I heard things I hadn't heard before tonight, as I always do. That's why I keep coming back to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. And even though I've known you all of your life, Reggie is 16 months younger than me. And so I've known him all of his life. And you guys are looking at a miracle when you see Reggie. And having walked through what you've walked through and having come on the other side and the man that you are today, I am proud to have you not just be my brother, be my friend. And so thank you for showing me what sobriety looks like. Gotta run. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. And what I meant to mention and did, like the way that I'm able to share, the way that I'm able to talk and be honest is totally due to Ronnie. When Ronnie had the biggest trouble of his life, and he was like, I know he talked about being suicidal, all that. He lost his license. He was upset. And he came back to mom's house to tell mom about it. And that was a time I was at mom's house, and I'm in mom's house, and they don't even notice me because at this point I'm the pariah and I'm just somewhere like sitting to the side. And he went in there, and I watched him tell her that he lost his license, that he'd no longer be able to practice. And he was telling her that he was going to be okay. And my mom was upset and saying, what are you going to do? He's like, made a little joke, like maybe I'll mow lawns or something, you know. And I was like, I was awestruck. That may have been the worst moment of his life, and I was never prouder of him. And I was like awestruck. I was thinking, I could never do that. How could he do that? I was like, just so, to watch somebody have the courage to say and do that was just, that's what makes me be honest.
Thank you, Reggie. Nikki G, come on up, please. Can't hear you. I think the volume on your mic is off. I'll come back to you, Nikki. Try to figure it out. I'll come back to you. Thank you so much. Tori, come on up, please.
Hello, my name's Tori. I'm an alcoholic. I'm here in Delaware, and my sponsor, she had sent me this tonight. And Reggie, I heard you speak a few weeks ago. First time I ever heard you speak, and it really touched me. And I'm really happy that I hopped on today because I've been sober for about 7 years. I got sober when I was 21, and I made a lot of mistakes in my sobriety, and thank God I've stayed sober through this time. But what's really new about this whole experience for me this time around is my dad tried to kill himself back in October. He stepped in front of an 18-wheeler. And my dad was the person that planted that seed in my head back when I was 19. And I came home, and he was like, Tori, I was probably 18, drunk as anything. And I came home, and he said, I really think you have a problem. It wasn't up until this point and all this happened that this situation has led me back to God, and I understand him a lot differently now. So I understand. I've never lost a child. I have 2 children. I can't even imagine. But yeah, he works how he works, and it's his will. And I've watched my family heal through a lot of this. There's a lot of alcoholism, a lot of drug addiction in my family. And God's been able to work through all of us, and thank God he kept my dad here. And I'm able to help my dad today because I'm still sober. If I wasn't still sober, I wouldn't have been able to handle something like this. So thank you for sharing that about your daughter. I didn't get to hear details in your story when I heard you, but that just really touched me, and I really need you to know that. And I really appreciate you for showing up and being here and staying sober and coming back. And I'm just really grateful to be here tonight. So thank you so much, Reggie. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Tori. And my heart goes out to you for your dad.
Thank you, Tori, for sharing. Nikki, you want to try again one more time, please?
Can you hear me?
You're good now?
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Nikki, alcoholic. Reggie, thank you so much for your share. That was beautiful. This meeting is so touching to me. I always take notes about things that stand out to me and things that are meaningful, and what I like to call God shots when I hear you guys speak on here. And so I had to go back through when I last heard you in July of 2022. And I love that there's different, God really speaks through you guys when you speak, and I hear that, and I love how each time we hear a different message. And anyways, I just wanted to say, I was going to ask you like that, when you like when it clicked to stop being like selfless, right? Because I've got your last message. You had said somewhere in there you stopped worrying about me. I quoted that from your last statement. And then this message too, like it was all about like being unselfish. But then it was funny because you did say like you had got a little selfish about the beans, and it just like really connects me to the fact that we're alcoholics and we have those like this our character defects, they keep popping up, but we're able to like move forward even so, and some of that stuff still. So I don't really have a question, but I appreciate you and thank you so much for your service.
Thank you so much, Tori. And it clicked about being selfish, selfless. And it's funny. That's why I say thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life. Because it was right when Rico told me that, right at Acton, when I had probably 2 or 3 days sober. And it just, something changed. And what happened is I stopped worrying. I always worried what you thought about me and what I looked like, and it stopped. All I cared about were the new guys in there. And I didn't care what anybody said to me. And it was all about them. And that was all God, except for I see when it comes to little things, and you would think something little like those, that's why I told a Chili Bean story. That's something that's really little, but I was deadly serious about that. So I got to be on guard at home more than anything else. I think point there.
Thank you, Reggie, and thank you, Nikki, for your share and your question. Cesar, would you please put on your video if you don't mind? Thank you, sir. Come on up.
Hey, guys, my name is Cesar. I'm an alcoholic. Reggie, thank you so much. I actually just started attending that Sunday morning meeting, and I haven't been able to share there because I've only been there twice. But I get so much out of it. I'm so grateful to be here. I really, really identified with a lot of what you shared. When you talked about donating plasma, almost started crying. And I didn't have to donate plasma to feed an addiction. I had to donate plasma so I could get gas in my car. I was in the Army, 20 years old, miserable, depressed, just starting my descent. And this thought of where I was versus where I am, it just, I almost feel shameful saying I still get angry, I still get petty, I can still be an asshole. And, I get angry when I think about when I was in my so-called physical prime. I didn't have goals. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have dreams. I had addiction. I had anger. I had rage. And now I have all these goals. I have dreams, but now I am physically and mentally disabled. And I could do things, but there's always that, that period where it's like, it's too much. Now we have to stop. And I look at my higher power and I say, why, and I get angry. And then I just have to stop and, think about that passage you shared in step 11. And it's like, well, where's the lesson? When I judge somebody, when I'm angry at somebody, where's the lesson? What do I have to tell myself? And, if it wasn't for this program, I don't know where I'd be. But I definitely would not have anything close to sanity. And so I keep coming back and I keep listening to people, even though it's never going to be perfect. I look for the progress. I was reading through step 11 before the meeting, and I looked at the part where it said, we will nourish our body. So we have enough to get through our day. Paraphrasing, we have to do the same thing with our spirit. And, I lived a life where I expect one day to be speaking to certain doctors, right? I smoked cigarettes for 20 years. And even though I've stopped for a number of years, one day I expect maybe to be talking to an oncologist. I expect to be speaking to other doctors. So I put myself with exercise and nutrition and a place to deal with whatever. Why don't I do that with my spirit? And that's what I got out of your share today, man. It's never too late. And keep showing up. And with that, I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your share. Laval, come on up, please, sir.
Good afternoon, good evening, good night to everyone. Reggie, how are you, sir?
Laval.
Man, hot diggity dog. I didn't have to take a drink today. What an amazing gift that I've been given, right? And the first time I met you because I heard people talking about the white brothers, the white brothers, the white brothers. And I was like, man, I got to see what's to the white brothers. You know, they do this big book study thing. And I didn't get to the Never Too Early. I was at a meeting that you spoke at, and you had me in tears. And I'm not a crier because my teeth come out, right? So I try not to cry. So, but story that you told big parts of it tonight, and it's just for me to know and understand that I need to stay connected, and that's what I heard. You know, I don't have family members in Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't have, you know, I have some that need to be here, but they ain't here with me, right? But to see what you guys do together, and then to hear how you made it back, like that's courage, man. That's I don't know if I'd have that in me. And I have to be honest with myself. You know, I know we you know, people make mistakes and things happen. I don't know if I'd have that in me to come back after such anger at this God that I don't understand. And I'm still in that position sometimes after 21 years, a God that I don't understand. You know, so that I love you, man. And I just want to say that, you know, and I follow you every chance I get. Because I know you're not just talking about what you do, and you still let me know just because I put the plug in the jug don't mean that life don't start. You know, life still happens, right? Yeah. So thank you, man, and thank you for being such an effective connection to this source. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for your share, Laval. Jean, come on up, please. I think your volume is off. Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
We're good now?
Are you okay now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm in Toronto, Canada. Thank you, Reggie, so much for your share. I've been on a 3.5-year relapse after many, many good years of sobriety. And I'm on day 2. And for the last 2 days, I've been going to meetings and just crying. And a friend of mine suggested that I've never been on this meeting. And a friend of mine suggested that I come to this meeting tonight. And she thought it would be a good meeting for me. And it was. Thank you so much. It's really hard coming back, but I know I can do this with the help of God and by listening to speakers like yourself. I do trust that this program is going to work for me again. But wow, it's not easy coming back, that's for sure. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your share.
Thank you, Dane. And Jane, please take my number off the participants list there, right next to my name. Please take it and text me so I can send you Zoom meetings. I send Zoom meetings out all over the world every day to people. I'd love to be able to send you meetings, and you can call me or text. Believe me, I was in and out all the time. So welcome home.
Welcome back, Jean. Thank you so much for sharing. And Lorraine, come on up, please.
Hi, my name's Lorraine. I'm still an alcoholic. I wasn't going to share, but what I was prompted by the last lady who shared, and what I was thinking about sharing was the part of my story that always resonates with you and your story, Reggie, and I follow you all over the place, as you know. I just love listening to you share. I just feel good listening to you share. I just do. My spirits get lifted. But I had double digits in the program, and I went back out for 20 years, and I've just celebrating today my first year back in the program. So yeah, I go to a lot of Zoom meetings, and I'd love to put my number in the chat for the lady who just shared, because I know a lot of great meetings. I spent this year handicapped and homebound because I had an accident on my first day of sobriety. I was paralyzed. So I had nothing to do all day long, every day and every night, except go on Zoom meetings. So anytime, day or night, whatever your time zone, I got a meeting for you. I've been doing research. So let me put my number in the chat for you. And Reggie, it's been such a wonderful pleasure. You're one of the first speakers I heard when I came back on Leslie's Barcelona meeting, on an all-day thing with Earl H. And she did this whole day. And I was brand new. And I heard you then, and I heard you say, don't let the life that AA gives you take you away from your AA life. And I went, oh, too late. I did that. But I won't do it this time. So it's great to be here tonight, you guys. Love y'all.
Thank you, Lorraine, and happy birthday. So good to have you back home.
Thank you, Lorraine. Nice to see you. Wendy V, come on up, please. You gotta unmute yourself, Wendy.
Oh, you cut out when you were saying my name, so I didn't know you
sorry, my bad.
But I'm Wendy, alcoholic. Reggie, oh my God. Ali, I sent the message to you that was supposed to go to Reggie, just thanking him, but thank you too, Ali. I just, tear jerker, to take that situation and turn it and look at, I mean, that's an act of God, to take what happened to your daughter and look at that as a positive. God gave you a chance to be a parent, to be able to make that sort of shift. There's got to be a God working in your life, because I can't. How does a man who can't get over chili beans take a huge firecracker like this and look at the cup half full? Like, how does that happen? That's an act of God, And I'm crying with you when you're sharing, because I'm feeling it. I got a daughter. I also got boys, a couple of boys, and I just hope that they all love one another like you and your brothers, and they could share that love when they get older. You described how the disease was sneaking up on you when you were sober, when you were moving away from the program, on the job, and somewhat being of service. And, that disease manifests. I was raising boys, and it manifested in me the same way. Real sneaky, like, well, I got kids and I'm taking care of them. I'm of service all day, every day. I got twins. They're keeping me. But the delusion was coming in day by day, little by little, until bam, I came in a crack addict and went out an alcoholic. Now, I don't know how that happens, but I never in my wildest dreams would have thought it would have happened. But it's a delusional disease. And that delusion creeped in the same way as a homemaker, as it did for you, out in a different place, making more money than I'm ever going to make. But the disease was the same. And that's what scares me. That is what I know that God and you and this program needs to help stay on top of, because I will slip back into delusion, and it'll happen. If I walk away from you guys or slip away, that delusion, I don't know how colorful it's going to get. I don't know what lies it's going to tell me, but it's going to tell me something that makes not being with you okay. And then little by little, boom, boom, one drink in front of me, maybe it's a crack, I don't know. And it's okay to take it. And I know that's what happened to you, because that happened even before your daughter passed away. And my heart goes out to you, and I relate to you. And the most powerful thing you said on top of that was God can work through you without your permission. And I've had that same experience. That means he can work through anybody with or without their permission. Thank you so much, Reggie. I'm going to reach out to you to get more meetings. I want to hear more of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Good to see you. Lana, come on up, please.
Hi, everyone. Lana, alcoholic. Oh, Reggie, I love you so much. Your soul, your spirit. And like you said, if it wasn't for Zoom, I wouldn't even know you. I wouldn't even know you. So grateful. But my question is, with practicing steps 10 and 11, when you first started practicing those steps, coming back, what did you notice about the transformation of your days? What did you start noticing by practicing 10 and 11? And how has it grown?
I became a better person. I started to like me more. So I know you guys like me more because I didn't realize how much of an asshole I was. It was what started to happen is I started to develop habits and because now I get up in the morning, like that step 11, by doing it the way that Polly talked about early in the morning. I get up every day and I do that meditation. Then I go to a 7 a.m. meeting. Then I get my day. Now I'm working with a sponsee immediately after that. And so in other words, instead of just haphazardly going through my day, and I immediately turn my day over to God. That's what I found out. So now it's not my day, it's God's day. And I found that out immediately. And I realized it's all looking in the rearview mirror. And then I realized, because I didn't realize it, had I been doing that the first sobriety, when I went off to Atlanta, if I'm still practicing 10 and 11, I'm fine. I'm fine. If I'm still doing 10 and 11, I'm still anchored to God instead of Reggie's doing this. Because I was still doing good things, but it was me doing it, not God doing it. So now it's all about me, not about God. And that's the whole key. That's the whole key. I don't care what I'm doing. It needs to be me knowing that it's God's will, not my will. As long as I'm in God's will, not my will, I'm fine. And so that's the whole deal.
Thank you, Lana, for your question. Josie P., come on up, please.
Thank you. My name is Josie. I am an alcoholic, and I also go to that Sunday meeting. And I also just gave you my number, Reggie, and you send me a bunch of messages today. Oh, yeah. And so I just wanted to thank you. I've heard your other brother once, and I've never heard you before, and you have an awesome story. And I remember when I was new, I used to get mad at God a lot, but I think it was really connected to my self-pity. Poor me, poor me. They used to say, poor me, poor me, pour me another drink, back, when I got sober, and I would get mad at God because I would blame everything that ever happened to me on God, and as I started to work the program, I started to realize that some of the stuff I had made choices based on self that later placed me in a position to be hurt, and when I started to take a look at that, I started to be more accepting of God's will. I always laugh at myself. I come in and I was like half dying, but I still wanted God. I wanted to know his will for me before I moved on, like stamp of approval kind of, and, but I really enjoyed your story, and you do have a powerful message. And I have a sponsee in here that we were communicating, the beginning part, page 105. I memorized it because it's a very powerful statement there, God can make good, out of our our suffering, I think, if we let him. That's what AA is all about, I believe, is that one alcoholic talking to another alcoholic. And even the worst thing that ever happened to me, I can share with another human being that has gone through the same thing, And so I just, I admire you for bringing that message to us tonight, because I'm sure you helped somebody, and throughout your time of speaking, you've probably affected many people, So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josie. And Reggie, brother, I'm going to email you the chat as well. There's a lot of love for you in the chat, so you can take a look at it later. David, come on, please. David Toronto.
Hi, I'm David G. I'm an alcoholic. My last name is not Toronto. That's just where I live. Reggie, you're a legend, more than you may know. My sponsor and I and all the group of guys that I hang out with here and the AA guys, we're always like, the whites are talking. You got to go onto this meeting, man. Like, we love you guys. Anyways, and Ali, thanks a lot for your service. Really, really appreciate it. Anyways, quick question. You said in your talk that you mentioned you did like a real step 6 and a real step 7.
Yes.
I'm just curious, like, what did that look like? Because those are steps that I've always just kind of quickly gone over. So
exactly, that's what I did the first time. First time because Rico said, okay, well, in the book it's very short, right? And it doesn't say you do much. Okay, you go back and you review, and then you sit for an hour and blah blah. I sat maybe 5 minutes the first time, and then I just did the 7-step prayer and I moved on, and I really gave it no thought. I gave it no thought, because now here's the difference. The second time I sat the full hour. I said, I am not going back out again. I'm not going back to what I did for these 16 years. So I had that desperation in me. So first I sat the whole time, but then the key part was when I did that 7-step prayer too, I really, really had the thought that, okay, God, this is all you. Basically, when I pivoted step 3, I'm pivoting, I'm giving my will over to God, right? And then at 4, I'm able to look at myself a little, but really that's the last time that I'm really looking at me and that I'm involved in anything at all. That's it. That's that. 5, that's Rico. That's Rico's job. I'm telling Rico what's going on. And then we're seeing the pattern. 6 and 7, I'm going back to God. That's all God. I don't work on my defects of character. You know how my defects of character have changed? God has done stuff. Like he put people in my life like Don Majors. I talked to somebody before the meeting where Don Majors talks about how his life changed when he decided that with his wife, he was going to practice courtesy. And he said, you cannot fail to be spiritual when you're being courteous. And I said, wow. And he said his wife and him hadn't had a crossword in 20 years. And I said, I'm going to practice it in my business first. I do taxes. I started being courteous to all of my clients. Amazing. And my business has blown up even bigger. And then I start practicing at home and around with people. And it's been amazing how people react to it. And see, I say that to say one of my defects of character was that I had a smart mouth. It seems like you're funny when you're being sarcastic and you're being an asshole, but really you're being an asshole and being smart mouth. And it's amazing the difference when I just stop, listen, let people talk and finish saying what they want to say before I jump in and cut them off. And in other words, I let God take away my defects of character instead of saying I'm working on them. And I consciously try to start working on them or say, God, take away me being sarcastic, take away me being, no. Just say, God, take away those defects of character that block me from being of maximum use. And then he may put somebody like Don in my life or somebody else, and I never know where it's going to come from, right? And I'm open to whatever people say. And then I try little things because I hear somebody say that, and all of a sudden my life changed. So that's how. It's like I let God. I know I'm turning to God, and it's all God.
Thank you, David from Toronto. Calvin, brother, last but not least, come on up.
I'm going to keep it really short. Reggie, I want to tell you thank you, man, especially for that last comment. Me and you were talking before the meeting about that. And me and you follow Don around pretty much the same way. You know, Don really has changed my life too, Reggie. And when you talked about the courteous, but also what you had said too is that when we go from like serving ourselves to serving God and people, man, and that shift that you talked about, you had in your story from that is it, man. I stayed here for a long time and I just served myself, basically, even when I'm going through the motions of acting like a nice guy, good guy. But when you start talking about, when we start thinking of others more, and I thought I was going to be sucker bait if I did that, man. I thought you know what I mean? How am I going to do that? Because I'm too stuck in self, right? And you talked about that. And now I think of others a lot more holding the door, little simple things. And it's amazing how our lives have changed. If you could talk a little bit about that, and I'm done. And just I wanted to say thank you, and I love you, and I love your brother Ron, and I love Ralph, man. So you're some great guys, man. Thanks.
Thank you very much, man. And I will say one more thing about that, because that happened at a couple of days sobriety, right? And that's God has flipped that. From that day to this, I've never thought about drinking or using one single time. Not the obsession kind. Not once. Not once did I have to fight that obsession. Anybody new in here, I need you to understand that. That's why with my sponsees, first thing I tell them, you gotta get numbers. You gotta call people. You gotta, everything you do is not to work on you. Stop working on you. Stop it. Everything you do is to turn and look at, help other people and do it genuinely. And if I could do that, God could sneak in behind my back while my back is turned and my hand is not in the pot trying to help him cook. And my life can get so much better, way more than I would do. And the way that worked for me, and I think Ronald has a big part of that. When I talked about Ronald with that, I believe, like I said, it's all about you guys. Ali was one of my biggest examples when it got on Zoom. Ali, I was shocked at how unfailingly polite and courteous Ali was. He didn't talk about it, but Ali demonstrated it in his walk. And I immediately gravitated to Ali. And I remember I told him about that a couple of times. And I was like, wow. And he's just so polite. And it was so, and that was, why is that so shocking to me? Because that's what we should, how we should be. But see, Ali, sometimes you're the only big book a person can read, right? The only big book a person can see. And my brother Ronald, like I said, when he did that courageous thing with my mom, y'all don't know how huge that is. I would have been so humiliated. I would have left. If I had lost my law license, I thought I would have walked away. I would have hidden it from everybody. I wouldn't have told nobody. I would have tried, I don't know what I would have done, but I wouldn't have had the courage to walk in there and just tell my mom straight up, hey, I messed up. I lost my law license. I did, this is what happened. And I did. I saw that courage and it just blew my mind. And I think when I got to that rehab, God was ready and God flipped that switch on me. And it was like, I didn't care what anybody saw. I didn't care what they said to me anymore. I didn't care how I looked anymore. And from that day to this, I have not cared how I looked anymore. I haven't cared about me anymore. I really don't. And it's a trip to be able to say that honestly. And I just be able to walk in God's brand of dignity, not mine, in God's brand of dignity, and just worry about you guys. Anyway, you get me excited on that. Thank you guys so much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Calvin. Thank you so much, Reggie, brother, for your beautiful share and Q&A. I appreciate you, man. Every time I listen to you, your transparency, honesty, power that flows through you. And I've been observing you for the last 3 years. I've got to know you, but I appreciate your service and your generosity. Man, you guys don't know half the stuff Reggie does. One time he called me from California because one of the sponsees he has lives close to us in Toronto, and she was going through a tough time, and he was gonna send her a gift, and he wanted to know how to do that through PayPal and stuff. And just the stuff he does in the background for the last 3 years. I've watched you send meetings every single day, unfailingly, be kind to people, be a service to Alcoholics Anonymous, and I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming back to our meeting.